Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Pikel with League of Items, and Top Esports. They got dick down by the big dick bot lane, something like that. So very surprising. Obviously, V5 beat Top Esports last night. For those of you who were watching my stream yesterday, we were talking about the different ways that V5 could win, and I feel like I was somewhat accurate. Um, but let's go through the drafts, and kind of see what V5's approach was and stuff like that. So I'll kind of discuss a little bit of what I talked about last night on the stream in this video. So let me just back this up a little bit. Alright, so first up we have the bans. So first, Top Esports bans Nidalee, which is targeted at the other jungler. Ashe, which is one of SamD's best champions, if not his best champion. They banned Zoe against Mole, which I think was another one of his most played champions. V5 banned Syndra, which is one of Knight's best champions. Varus, which is an overpowered champion in general, and Ezreal, which is another champion that Jackie Love is obviously very good at. So I just want to make sure that they don't start trading and everything. I could just skip back again. So first pick overall was Aphelios, and this is not surprising at all. Aphelios is a very good champion. Will scale very hard into the late game. No problems with that. I did mention that I think it would be better for V5 to give up something like Ezreal as opposed to Aphelios, because there's like the additional weakness of Ezreal for the first 6 levels roughly, where he's not going to have any items to contest dragons and stuff like that. V5 picked up Graves, and I talked about this several times last night. I thought that Karsa would most likely be playing Lee Sin or Trundle in these games, and V5 would most likely get Graves or Nidalee in these games. And I am obviously a huge proponent of Graves Nidalee, the carry jungle meta that we've been on since 10.7. I've talked about it in like almost all of my videos, at least mentioned the jungle in all of my videos. PP God got Thresh, one of his better champions, very good. This is where things kind of got interesting. So I was correct, they did pick Lee Sin, but they also picked Karma. And I'm pretty sure that most people could agree seeing Knight play something like Karma is kind of a letdown. I think that their advantage, one of their biggest advantages, was in the mid lane. So both top laners have the same champion pool. In the jungle, we have Lee Sin and Trundle versus Graves and Nidalee. So the advantage really should go to Graves or Nidalee, and you have to kind of outplay that from Top Esports side. Then you blind pick Karma. I don't think. Obviously, Karma is a power pick, and some teams are better at this kind of playstyle than others. I think for Top Esports, they really should have taken advantage of the mid lane matchup, because I think the biggest talent discrepancy is Knight against Mole. So that's questionable. And then V5 picks up Kalista. Kalista, this is a very good pick for them for several reasons. So in my video last night, in the stream last night, I was explaining that I think V5 really needs to be strong in the early game, contesting every dragon. I thought something like a mid Fiddlesticks was possible. They didn't go in that direction. But they have Kalista. Kalista helps secure these objectives with her stacks that she can rend. It increases like the smite threshold somewhat significantly. So that's a very smart pick in my opinion. They also picked up Twisted Fate. So Twisted Fate, I think that he goes Unsealed Spellbook. So again, he has smite. So that's 3 different players that can contribute to securing an objective. The 4-5 picks for Top Esports were Wukong and Nautilus. So these are 2 good champions with Aphelios. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with Top Esports draft, like in isolation, but I feel like it's not taking advantage of their player strengths which is always an interesting thing to consider from a coaching perspective. It's like, are we trying to play this patch, or are we trying to play our team on this patch? And are we focused on what we want to do, or are we responding to what the enemy team wants to do, or what we think the enemy team wants to do? The 4th and 5th picks for V5 were Twisted Fate, like I said, and Ornn. So Ornn's a very good champion. Against Wukong, it goes at least even in lane. A lot of the time, the Ornn can leave laning phase with an advantage. So let's skip ahead and check out some of the action in this game. So, I mean, we don't have to see everything, but okay. So they had an invade. So Top Esports went for an invade on the red buff. V5 was ready for this, and set up a small gank, which is pretty smart. They started to figure out that it was going on, and they still went for it. So I think this was pretty greedy by Top Esports. Mole's able to move first. Graves smites away the red buff, and they get first blood. Okay, so that's a pretty horrible start for Top Esports. Graves is already going to be ahead in this matchup, and now Graves is going to be even further ahead because he can kind of just power farm. Lee Sin manages to get a kill back somewhere. Like I said, doesn't really matter. That's not my focus this game. But let's take a look at one of the first objectives. So it looks like Lee Sin's going in for a gank in the bot lane. Yu Yanjia hits a hook. Karsa is looking for the gank, but is unable to follow up. And now we have a response gank. Hits a hook onto Nautilus. Wow, they actually got that kill. That's pretty surprising. Didn't think they'd have enough damage for that. But Twisted Fate came down as well. And now they start the dragon. So they're going to get the first dragon of the game. And this creates that timer. So every 5 to 6 minutes, you should expect the next dragon to go down. So the timer is obviously 5 minutes, but it does take some time to like actually kill the dragon. So we have 18 minutes basically until a theoretical last dragon fight. Between the 24 to 26 minute mark is what we can start looking at. So at the 24 to 26 minute mark, how strong is Aphelios going to be? Is Aphelios going to be able to win a team fight on his own at that point? Because right now, Top Esports is already down a little bit of gold. So those are the kinds of questions you have to start asking yourself. You have to start thinking, like, are there adjustments in my build path that I'm going to need to make in order to get to that point and be strong? Are we going to be able to fight any of the dragons before that point? Those are all pretty important questions to start considering. So Top Esports does a good job taking back the Rift Herald. Both teams were looking for that, so that's a pretty good response by them. All right, so let's go backwards to the next dragon. So Top Esports is looking to make a play on the top half of the map before the dragon comes up. Knight goes down and gets a kill onto Sam D, so that's a mistake by Sam D, and it just shows you Knight is continuously looking to make plays around the map, even when he's on something like Karma. So that's kind of what you want to avoid. You don't want a player on a champion that is outside of their playstyle. I'm not saying that Knight isn't able to play Karma, but when you have him on a champion that is not super aggressive and has the ability to go forward, be aggressive, split push, contest side waves, look for picks, you're limiting the champion somewhat significantly, or the player somewhat significantly, and the champion, I guess, theoretically, because they're not going to be playing it maybe the way that it's intended to be played. So now we have 2 dragons on the side of V5. This just means that their win condition is still secure, so that's great for them. Let's move forward. Okay, so now we're at another dragon fight, and you can always predict that. Oh wait, sorry. I missed it. So let's take a look at this third dragon fight and see what happens. So this is the point where Top Esports is probably thinking to themselves, we need to contest this one, because once a team gets on the sole point, it's similar to what we saw in the T1 match yesterday. You can like accidentally die before the 4th dragon, or get zoned off the 4th dragon, and then you look like an idiot because you weren't able to contest. So I guess Top Esports wasn't looking to contest this. I think this is a pretty big mistake. They could just be saying to themselves, we're not strong enough to fight. Aphelios is only on Infinity Edge. Callista has Blade of the Ruin King plus component pieces for a crit item. Karma is relatively strong. Most of their damage is on the Aphelios, though, so they really will need to scale pretty hard into this game. Which is questionable, because V5 doesn't seem to me like the kind of team that's going to be easily outscaled. They seem to have a good grasp of the macro game, and in their match against like FPX, they showed that they can win low-scoring games and they can lose gracefully. So they got a pick there, not a big deal. I just want to see the dragon fights, because that's really what I was talking about last night, was the potential focus on dragons. So it's up in 30 seconds. They take an inhibitor, it looks like, or they try to. And then we're going to get to a dragon fight. So this is the most important point in the match. This is the final dragon fight. So, again, let me just pause it right here. So, the reason why it's important to get onto Soul Point is the reason it's important to get onto Soul Point when you also have a positional advantage is that you're going to be able to set up first and force the enemy team to walk into you. So, V5 is already set up around the dragon, and since they've been pushing in the mid wave consistently, they have the artificial vision of the minions. They also have cookie crumb wards, which is what it's called when you're like dropping wards on the way out, like the fairy tale or whatever, or breadcrumb wards, cookie crumb wards, whatever, one of those. So V5 is prepared for the engage. The things that they have to take into consideration right now is Lee Sin looking for an insec, which is a kick flash or flash kick, basically where you're sending the AD carry or a primary target into your team with Lee Sin. You have to watch out for a flank by Wukong. You have to watch for a straight-up engage from Nautilus. That's going to be more front-to-back team fighting if Nautilus is the one getting the engage. Aphelios will most likely be on that target. And then we also have Karma. Karma is just going to be enchanting Aphelios to give him additional damage. So at the 24-minute mark, we have Black Cleaver. We have Death's Dance. Ornn has 2.5 items, so Ornn's gigantic right now. Lee Sin has Black Cleaver and Warrior against Black Cleaver and Warrior, so that's relatively close. I bet Graves had some additional gold on him at this point. For Karma, we have Athene's, Ardent Censer, and Rabadon's. So Karma is extremely powerful right now. If there were additional damage sources from Top Esports, it would have been much better for them, I think. Like if they had something in the top lane that could really take advantage of the additional on-hit effects of Ardent Censer. But Karma's going to be very strong in this fight. Probably stronger than Twisted Fate, in just more impactful than Twisted Fate. Twisted Fate has Zanya's, a Rapid Fire Cannon, and a Roa. So the Zanya's and the Roa are fine. Rapid Fire Cannon's interesting. It just increases the range, basically, of how far you can throw a gold card or something like that during the middle of the fight. Because you're not going to get many of those off, but you will get a few during a team fight, most likely there for the engage. And then we have Aphelios on Infinity Edge plus Hurricane against Blade of the Ruin King and Hurricane. So at this point, I mean, Aphelios is extremely close in terms of power. So I do think it's somewhat reasonable for them to be looking for a team fight here. And at the end of the day, they don't have a choice. You have to fight. You have to fight this. So let's slow it down just a little bit. So we're at 0.75. So Karsa gets in, but then he kicks Graves. Not really the important target. Aphelios tries to move in, and even with Karma support, he's unable to survive very long. Taken out by V5 pretty easily. And again, that's just something that I think it might have something to do with Knight playing on Karma as opposed to a champion that he is more familiar with. Again, I'm not saying Knight is incapable of playing Karma. But, I mean, Jackie Love just takes so much damage from the Ornn and the Twisted Fate. So that's pretty bad, and when that happens, that means you're giving away Dragon Soul, and when you give up Dragon Soul, you should lose the game. So yeah, just it looks like a pretty bad team composition because of the players on their team, not because of the champions being bad or something. So let's get into game two. Game two, it's still blue side for Top Esports. V5 is on red side. Again, they go for the Trundle instead of Lee Sin this time, which is one of the other champions I was expecting to see a lot this match. V5 picks up Ashe and Karma, so it looks like Karma is obviously one of the better champions that teams try to get because it can be flexed into multiple roles. So it's Ashe and Karma against Kalista and Nautilus. This is interesting because Kalista will be able to dive the backline pretty effectively, but I feel like Ashe just has a better laning phase than Kalista and could have just like completely stomped the lane with a little bit of help from the jungler. Also, something to take note of is that Nidalee and Graves were both banned by Top Esports against Weiwei, which is a big sign of respect for Weiwei. I don't think he's the best jungler, but when you play the really strong champions, you have to kind of be, they have to pay attention to you. Okay, so basically what I'm seeing from this draft is that Top Esports wants to have more of a scaling advantage, and to be able to get Knight onto a champion that can basically do all of the damage that his team needs. The only issue is that they have a ton of magic damage on their team. So Cassiopeia and Kalista are both doing a lot of magic damage. I think one of the only reasons they were able to go into Cassiopeia is because of the Renekton pick. I think if they went more of a traditional tank top lane, then that would not have been available. So if they picked like Ornn, for example, I think that probably would have been a better choice. It's not fun picking Ornn against Trundle because Trundle can just come steal a lot of your defensive statistics, but some kind of tank is probably better there. Because the thing is, like, if they picked some kind of tank top lane, they wouldn't even really need to build much armor. It's mostly building magic resist in this match. So let's see how Top Esports kind of adjusts their game plan. So now they're a little bit more focused on dragons. They go for an early one with Karsa. V5 tried to respond to it. Top Esports takes them out. They get the first dragon, and then they have several deaths. So that does feel very bad, but it does just play towards the dragon win condition, which is you don't want to lose that way twice to the same team. So let's go back a little bit. Let's see if there was any specific reason they were able to take this. So Top Esports was able to get Rift Herald, and then they used the additional lane pressure from the Rift Herald in the bot lane to try and take the second dragon. Got the dragon. So that's very important. And there's a reason why you like focus on these points of the game, is because they're pretty easy to predict. Like, you know that teams are both going to have a relatively high priority on dragon. Okay, so this is a very interesting fight. So Top Esports obviously looking for their third dragon. V5 knows that they have to fight. We're on even gold. So this is a very important point. We have Ornn on one item, Renekton on one item. Both of the junglers are fine. Cassiopeia doesn't have her Archangel Staff completed yet. We have a Hex Tech, which is okay. It's a good item for Sylas, but it's not like a game-changing item, is all I'm saying. Kai'Sa doesn't have her mana item stacked yet either, so that's not a mana immune yet, or a mirror mana yet. Ashe has Blade of the Ruin King, so Ashe isn't going to be doing an extreme amount of damage yet. More about positional team fighting for now. So Top Esports is in position first. They look to get a hook onto V5. Probably should have waited a little bit longer to get them into a choke point. I'm not sure how much damage Top Esports is really going to be able to do in like an AoE team fight. Cassiopeia's range is pretty short. Kallista's range is pretty short. They didn't have Ornn ultimate either. That would have been perfect if they had Ornn ultimate. If they were all walking down that piece of the map. Okay, so why is Samd out of position? Okay, so Samd went to go clear the wave in the mid lane. And this is I guess a decision point we can talk about. Like, if you're V5, you know that Top Esports is about to get Dragon Soul Point. So is your mid tower worth third dragon? I would say yes. So Samd goes to contest that wave mid lane. The worst case scenario, if you're V5, is you get the dragon, you add an additional 6 minutes onto the game, and you just give up 1 or 2 towers in the mid lane. Because that's basically all they're preventing is Top Esports being able to run down mid and take a couple of towers. So Samd uses a Blast Cone and has to flash out still. They're doing a pretty good job turning this fight. It's pretty fractured. Nautilus goes down. But they lose the dragon. Wait, what? So it looks like Knight just starts killing dragon, which is very smart. So he's basically saying Nautilus is going to die. I can't help him at all. So let's just go make sure that we get the third dragon. And now the Nautilus sacrifice is good. So it's like, okay, even if we have several members of our team die, we have the win condition a couple minutes from now to force a fight around the next dragon. So this is right when the next dragon is spawning. So let's take a look at this. Again, V5 and Top Esports are both right on top of dragon as it spawns. Silas stole Ornn ultimate, which is very good, and is able to get it onto Knight and Karsa. Then the real Ornn comes in with an ultimate. Nautilus goes forward. Kalista goes forward. So this is one of the reasons that Kalista is pretty good on this team composition, is because she can dive into the backline. Obviously, Knight is just out of his mind, doing a lot of damage in the team fight because he's on a champion that can actually play with his preferred playstyle, which is pushing forward, being aggressive. Just a much better champion for Knight. So they get Dragon Soul, and once you get Dragon Soul, you should win the game almost every time. This was a pretty insane highlight, I believe. Yeah, let's take a look at that. So again, this is another reason why you want Knight on something like Cassiopeia. So PP God moves forward on Karma, instantly killed by Knight. Now Volibear is there. They have a teleport coming in, so it's basically a 3v1. Knight on Cassiopeia equals I can 3v1 your team. Knight on Karma is, oh, I can't even keep my Aphelios alive. So which one of those do you want on your team? I think you probably want Knight on Cassiopeia. It's similar to what happened with Jizuki the other day. Like, you don't want Jizuki on Jizuke on something like Karma. It's just not, you're not taking full advantage of your player. So again, going into this match, let's look at the pick ban phase actually, because the pick ban phase should also have the additional information from the games that they've already played. So if I'm one of these two teams, I'm thinking to myself, Dragon is obviously like the most important objective in this match. We want to make sure that we can contest every single dragon because there will be team fights happening around these dragons. It's just inevitable. Like both teams have been hyper focused on Dragon this entire match, and it's been a big part of why the team has been able to win for the first two games. So first we have Trundle again. So I was correct. Lee Sin and Trundle every single game for Top Esports. In this one, V5 ends up picking Volibear again. So Volibear is a strong champion. He was forced to go on to Volibear because Graves and Nidalee were both taken away. So Top Esports is basically saying, we're fine with you on Volibear, even though some people think Volibear is broken, but we don't want you on Nidalee, we don't want you on Graves, because those two champions, in my opinion, are still stronger. It's just a different style of champion, and it feels different when you're losing to it. Like, Volibear is just feels bad, man, when you're losing to that. Aphelios, so V5 gets Aphelios, one of the best champions in the game, arguably. Top Esports picks Kalista into Aphelios. I think that specifically is just giving Aphelios a free laning phase, which is a pretty big mistake. The Nautilus does have chances to impact Aphelios in the lane, but, I mean, Aphelios is going to have a pretty easy early game, unless he makes some gigantic mistakes. Volibear against Trundle. Volibear is able to dive bot, so if there is some kind of play from top esports to go after a Rift Herald, V5 can just respond by diving bot lane. They have Twisted Fate again, so again, that's another option to dive bot lane and play around Samd and PP God, which I think is very smart. They have a very good weak side top laner in Kayle. Kayle can get destroyed if the other team continuously dives her and stuff like that, but even in that scenario, she still has her ultimate, and as long as the game lets her get to 16, she's going to be very helpful for her team. And the only reason why that was made possible is because Ornn was taken by top esports, so that basically gives Kayle a free laning phase outside of ganks. So I know that LS was like flaming somebody on Twitter because like he said something about how top esports deserved to lose the game because they picked 4.5 melee champions into Aphelios, and I think that's a fair criticism. Like he knows the game very well, and he has a lot of ideas that are somewhat not dogmatic, but like very strict and unchanging. So borderline dogma, but not dogma. So his working theory is that when you're playing against Aphelios, you need to have champions that can deal with him from a long range, because if you stack together, this is really what he's talking about. It's not that being a melee champion against Aphelios is inherently wrong. It's that if you have multiple melee champions and they're all trying to get onto Aphelios, then Aphelios gets additional value out of a Runan's Hurricane, out of his different guns that do AoE damage. So that's really what you're trying to limit. You're trying to play against Aphelios' win conditions, not into Aphelios' win conditions. So they get a top dive onto Ornn. That just accelerates Kayle a little bit because she's getting additional experience. She's getting additional gold, getting closer to level 16 every time she is like a part of a fight. Top Esports is able to take the first dragon off of that, so that feels pretty good. It looks like they're looking to make plays in the bot lane, and again, this is kind of telegraphed from the draft. So when you have Twisted Fate and Volibear, why would you not go bot lane 5 times? So the tower gets turned off. Jackie Love wastes flash and heal there. I think that there's no way that he survives. Like, there would have to be some kind of gigantic mistakes made by V5 for him to survive there. So they get another dive onto Jackie Love. So this is one of the reasons why Volibear is thought of as a very strong pick, is because you can play this simple play style where you're just continuously running at the enemy AD carry under their tower. And that's one of the reasons why Kalista into Aphelios isn't good. So Aphelios is a champion that's going to outscale Kalista. Not Kalista, Kai'Sa. I keep saying Kalista. It's going to outscale Kai'Sa. It's a very different playstyle. So like some people can say Kai'Sa is pretty good in the late game, but it's not Aphelios. Aphelios is definitely better. So they're able to pick up the Infernal Dragon. So what happens here? It looks like V5 just doesn't care very much about the dragon timers. Otherwise, you wouldn't send 3 players up top lane. So they're probably thinking to themselves, even if we give up 2 more dragons, Kayle is going to be level 16 and gigantic for the 4th dragon fight, or the Dragon Soul fight, or the Baron fight. So they're not concerned with that. So let's see how this fight kind of happens. Alright. So we're 45 seconds ahead of the dragon from being on the rift, but both teams are making plays with the dragon in mind. So a lot of teams will mistakenly wait until the dragon spawns to try to do something. You really want to be proactive and have a play set up where you can potentially get a kill, and then it's going to be a 5v4 for the dragon. So V5 is pushing out bot lane as a response to top esports pushing in mid lane. This tower is going down pretty fast though. Kayle has to use her ultimate on herself. Sylas steals away Kayle's ultimate and does the same. They're looking to turn the fight. Nautilus comes in. Now it's a 3v2. Looks like Kale is going to die. Kale dies. Jackie Love, again, getting dove on by the Volibear. I'm pretty sure that Kaisa is the champion that Jackie Love has a skin for, right? Like, that's his best champion. So maybe that's why they played it. And that just speaks volumes about how much Top Esports probably respects V5 right now, that they're playing their best champion against V5. But it's 2 for 2, so now it's a 3v3. Silas is separated from the rest of his team. Volibear, Aphelios, and Bard. That should be a pretty difficult team to fight into as Top Esports. And Top Esports doesn't have their jungler. So if I'm V5, I'm just going to the Dragon, and I'm going to try and take Dragon, not necessarily chase down for kills. I do understand why they would, though. So basically, Aphelios is going to outscale Kaisa at some point. Every kill that you get is just going to accelerate that clock. So they're able to get the Dragon. Top Esports goes for a Desperation Baron. And it looks like they're just going to get it for free. So that's a very good play by Top Esports. So let's see how that kind of played out. So we didn't even really get to see it because of the replay. So basically, right when they spawned, they went straight to Baron and took down Baron. That's a very good sign for Top Esports. Obviously, they're a very good team. And this is the kind of play that you need to make when you're losing the game. I think that you basically need to force the enemy team to make the right response, which is checking the Baron pit once they respawn. But they were kind of laxed in their vision control and gave up the Baron for that reason. Okay, so this is pretty aggressive. Mole is looking to engage onto Jackie Love in the mid lane. This is one of the benefits of having Twisted Fate. This is also interesting because this is only possible when you have something like Bard to follow up with, like, the deep save. Sam D misses that one pretty bad. Missed his ultimate, so that's a waste. But they're able to take out Jackie Love. They kill Karsa again. Kale came in with a nice ultimate to save TF, but he didn't really need to save TF. It's just like a bonus. So now they only have Baron on 3 members. V5 just playing this really well. Continuously attacking the weak point, which is the Kaisa. So again, Top Esports is looking to make a proactive play. This is a sign of a great team. You can't allow the team to just continuously dictate how the game is going to be played. So they're able to turn this into a 5v4. If I'm Top Esports, I probably feel very desperate and would try to end the game right here. It doesn't mean that you're going to be able to end the game right here, but they're probably going to be pressing very hard at this point. They still have Baron buff for 40 seconds. So if you're V5, the priority is killing off minions. If you're Top Esports, the priority is killing the objective. And they're unable to do anything with the rest of that Baron buff. And now we have Dragon coming up. So this Dragon, not the most important Dragon in the world, but you want to give yourself the soul point. At this point in the game, the 28-minute mark, the game can end at any point if there's an ace. So the Dragon becomes a little bit less important, but if Dragon Soul is taken, then obviously you're feeling really good. Ornn is caught out. Takes a lot of damage. He uses Unstoppable for the Bard ultimate, which is pretty broken. Dragon's still spawning soon. And now the team fight is going to break out pretty hard. So Mole gets caught trying to use Magical Journey. Volibear is going into the back line. That's an interesting spot to go after. So they were going after Silas instead of Jackie Love again. Maybe they're just not afraid of him right now because he's been so far behind. Wow. So the Kale ultimate on a Sam D saved him 100%. So now it's 5v3. Looks like Top Esports is going to be able to take another Dragon. Twisted Fate has to get out. Yeah, so good job by Top Esports. It's 10-11. Their team fighting pretty well, but I think that fight was more about V5 making a mistake than Top Esports playing that well. They're looking for another pick. So they get some initial damage onto Knight, and then they use the Bard ultimate. That's questionable, I guess. It gives Top Esports a lot of time to respond. But Kale's level 16 now, so they probably feel like it's their game to lose at this point, even down a dragon. Baron is on the map, so they could be posturing around Baron, but they're not doing that. They kill off the minion wave. Dragon's not up for 3 minutes, so they're really either going to have a team fight, the wave is going to get pushed back and forth, maybe somebody goes and tries to force a Baron fight. But those are really the only options that are out there right now. So again, we're fighting over mid-wave control. See, so now, if Top Esports is not willing to do the Baron, they're going to be, like, running back to their base trying to stop the inhibitor from being taken. So now they get into the Baron pit and they're forcing V5 to walk up, which is smart. Twisted Fate, having Twisted Fate in this instance is extremely important because he's able to give vision of the entire team. Wow. Alright, so let me slow that down even more, because this is a pretty unlucky thing for Top Esports. So basically, Trundle drops his pillar onto Aphelios, thinking that it'll keep him in place and Nautilus will be able to engage, but the Nautilus hook misses somehow. Aphelios goes in with his ultimate. Top Esports is doing a lot of damage and actually winning the team fight. Nautilus goes down. Volibear is still pretty strong. Gets a shield. Kale ultimate's already been used. Twisted Fate is taken out. Now it's a 4v4. This is crazy. Does V5 actually win this fight? So it's still a 4v4. Ornn is looking to chase down. Doesn't have flash or anything like that. Silas is a good champion to chase down as well. So Top Esports probably feels like they just won the game. Or like are very close to winning the game. Because like once you get that slight team fight advantage and the other team is running away from you, that's really when something like Silas has the chance to take over the game completely. So they go on to Baron. And it's starting to look like they threw the game at Baron. So Kale does not have her ultimate. Bar doesn't have his ultimate. Volibear doesn't have his ultimate. Top Esports gets Baron buff, but if all of these players die, it doesn't matter. Knight gets a good ultimate off onto PP God and Weiwei. But right now, Aphelios is still the strongest champion. Knight was like a pixel away from catching Sam D right there, which is insane. So this is pretty unfortunate, just because they were all in the Baron pit, which just makes Aphelios even better. Like that's perfect for Aphelios when you're fighting against 3 or 4 melee champions in Baron pit. That seems pretty unfair. And they won the game right off of that. So this should not be thought of as V5 dominating Top Esports. Top Esports actually showed that they are able to win from behind, which is very important. So this is probably just a good thing for Top Esports. I think V5 did prove a lot in this match, being able to play the macro game against Top Esports, but they already showed that they were able to do that against FPX. So this isn't very surprising to me. This would have been more surprising if V5 won like an extremely bloody match where it was like 25 to 18. That's where I think Top Esports has a huge advantage over V5, is these games that just get out of control with kills. Not a huge fan of the pick ban phase. If I can predict what you're going to do in the pick ban phase before, like hours before the match even happens, then don't you think that you're probably being a little predictable? I didn't predict them picking 4 or 5 melee champions into Aphelios or going into a Baron pit. Going into a Baron pit against Kale, another AoE champion, another AoE auto attack champion, so even more AoE damage. It's not like just spamming abilities, it's being able to damage multiple people in a small area very fast. So I think Kale plus Aphelios in Baron pit, you don't want to be against that. I guess Top Esports' only other option would have been to posture around the Baron and then try to flank. So that's probably what they were missing, was a flanking option to help Knight. So maybe the Ornn was the pick that kind of threw everything off. Ornn's not aggressive enough. If it's something like, I don't know. It's tough to say. It's really tough to say. So the Ornn was able to upgrade Zanya's Hourglass, which is okay but not amazing. Redemption, which is okay but not amazing, especially on Trundle. And then has their own 2 items. At level 16, it should be... There should be more upgraded items, right? You really want Ornn on a team with an Infinity Edge user. Or a Triforce user. But that's being kind of nitpicky, I guess. I do think that was probably the problem, though, because by picking Ornn, not only do you miss out on another flanking champion, you also give V5 the opportunity to play Kale. So maybe they didn't think that BuBu was going to play Kale, but I think that he has played Kale already this split. So maybe that was just an oversight, or maybe they were fine with that happening. But if they were fine with that happening, then... So if they were fine with that happening, then the real mistake was giving up this second dragon. And the second dragon was given up because Jackie Love was they dove Jackie Love under the bot tower. So I think it could be kind of argued that they lost this in the draft phase, or probably more accurately, they lost it because Jackie Love was continuously just murdered. So then you kind of have to blame Jackie Love for this loss. Or you can just give V5 the credit. I mean, I think both options are realistic. So this is the fight. So if you're top esports, instead of going onto the Baron pit, you sweep out vision, and you would kind of want to set up right here for a Baron fight, like right along this area right here. Because top esports doesn't have vision into the Baron pit, and they don't have Twisted Fate to get vision into the Baron pit. They would have to use a blue trinket, which none of them have right now. Maybe they just felt like they were stronger right now. But Kale went back to base, full health, comes back in. It's a very interesting decision to go after this. So they look to fight here as well. Maybe they should have just tried to get out. Silas could have gotten out. Trundle could have flashed out of the pit. It's hard to think that they felt like they were stronger here. Yeah, so I mean, that's the kind of thing that we can only speculate. We'd have to actually talk to the team about that. But that's whatever. So let's go to the second match real quick. Sunning against Billy Gaming. Sunning won game 1 pretty easily, 10-4. That was pretty upsetting for DraftKings purposes. I'm a huge Sunning fan. I think that they're just like a very underrated team right now by most people. I knew that they won game 1 pretty easily. I fell asleep during this game because it was like 7 o'clock in the morning or something, and I didn't really sleep very much. Sunning is keeping the game relatively close, but they're down 2,000 gold. Down 2 dragons. I thought they were winning at one point in this match. Billy Gaming. They made a sub, so they swapped out ADD for Kingen. Top Zillion. Wow. That's interesting. Pretty good for an Aphelios team composition, because he is the only champion on your team really doing a lot of damage. So they had a big team fight win there for Sunning. This is probably where they felt like they were turning the game. Oh, don't tell me they win this fight too. Oh no. Billy Gaming oversteps right there. And they throw away their lead. Dragon comes up. What the hell? Wow. So they went for Baron and Dragon at the same time, which allowed Lee Sin to die, right? Yeah, so they kill Lee Sin. Not a huge deal. So now they have they're threatening Soul Point. They have Baron buff. How do you throw this game away? They take bot tower, posturing around mid lane. They take top tower. So now they have a tower advantage. They have a positional advantage. Theoretically, they could still get outscaled by Billy Gaming. At this point in the game, all it takes is one team fight win for either team to kind of end the game. One decisive team fight win. Nautilus misses his hook. Aphelios is hit by Leona's ultimate, but that instantly cleanses out of it. Aphelios takes out Syndra, which is very important. It looks like Ornn is inevitably going to die. Stuck in the middle of that team. And again, this is all happening because Dragon's on the map. If you're sunning, you should have been able to set this up better. So right now, see that minion wave in bot lane? That's pushing the wrong direction. So they should have known that. They should have fixed that before. Because it gives them another option. Like, if you're about to lose this team fight around Dragon Pit, instead of having nowhere to really escape, you just run bot lane with your minions, try to shove in bot tower, and create a new fight down there. Like right here. Right here specifically. So if this wave down... you can't really see it right now, but on the mini-map... let me just switch it. So on the minimap right now, you see this wave all the way down here. It's going this direction. You want it to go this direction. So right now, when Sunning is in mid lane, posturing around the dragon, like right in this position right here, if the wave was pushed up far enough, they would have been able to transition their pressure from mid lane to bot lane, and that would have been a helpful tool based on how this all turns out. It's not trying to like retroactively tell them something that they were unable to know. Like, it's always correct if you're the winning team to have the waves pushing in the right direction. That's pretty basic at this point. So Sunning loses that fight. They lose Dragon. And now we're getting another Baron fight. So Sunning was able to create a large enough lead with their Baron. Let's see what Billy Gaming can do. Ooh. Lee Sin goes in for a smite. They probably could have just let him die. Or, not let him die. They could have probably just let the Baron go away. Like, I don't think they're going to lose the game off of that one Baron. So we're going to get another team fight. Ooh. So Lee Sin knows that Aphelios was on red? Billy Gaming still has Baron buff right now, so this is pretty sketchy. Aphelios is walking into the fight in the mid lane. This is an interesting decision. Lee Sin kicks Aphelios backwards, not knowing that Aphelios' team was actually on that side of the map. Let's back this up a little bit. So if you take a look at... This is actually another thing that... this is another thing that LS has been talking about, is the build path for Lee Sin. So if this Lee Sin was like a lethality Lee Sin, he would have had the ability to actually kill Aphelios, probably. At least it would have been close. And then you would have had a 4-on-4 on the other side of the map where Aphelios isn't there, who is their primary damage dealer. So instead of kicking Aphelios back into the team, Lee Sin would have kicked Aphelios down towards the bot lane and forced Billy Gaming to all run down towards the bot lane. That probably would have won the game. Wow. But instead, Aphelios just does Aphelios things, and they win this team fight, and that ends the game. Correct. All right, so let's look at the last game. I did watch this game. So this game was pretty interesting, very explosive. We're just going to take a look at the end of the game. So Billy Gaming has the lead right now. They have 3 dragons as an advantage. Sunning makes an aggressive play call around the 20-minute mark and is able to secure Baron. This is one of the reasons why I like Sunning a lot, and I think that they have the potential to be like a very good team, is because they're willing to make these plays that a lot of teams aren't willing to make. That was a very, 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 very risky play. So you have to love that they were able to pull that one off. They have a couple players die, but by getting the Baron buff, they increase the amount of time that they can survive in this game. And then this was incredible that they were able to they were able to continuously fight these dragons at this point. So let me just go forward. All right, so this is one of the reasons why some teams are okay giving up Soul Point, is because they always think that they're going to be able to play as well as Sunning does right now, which is just a ridiculous way to look at things. So you should always avoid this position if possible. So right now Renekton is looking for a flanking position through the bottom tri-bush. Jhin was interesting here because Jhin does make a lot of sense with Zoe, but a lot of these Jhin ultimates were just 4 shots just thrown at the enemy team, and they're not going to do a lot of damage. Like, in order for it to be doing a ton of damage, you need the 4th shot to be on a lower target. But here, Angel gets a great pick onto Kennen, and this is why that combination is pretty deadly. So Jhin is able to flash forward and get a kill onto Kennen after the follow-up from the Sleepy Trouble Bubble. So it goes 1 for 1, but Kennen is much more impactful in a like front-to-back team fight than the Zoe is, because Kennen can disrupt the entire enemy team and can do AoE damage to multiple members. So Renekton was still looking for a flanking position the entire time, pops Dominus, and is looking to get into the back line on Kindred. So there, right now, he's mostly just distracting the enemy team. Wings is kind of out of the fight at this point, so it's going to take a decent amount of time for Wings to walk back into this fight, and that forces Sunning to go onto the dragon and just try to take the dragon. So it gets down pretty low. Bilibili Gaming gets much closer, but they're unable to get Kindred close enough to the dragon before Trundle can smite it. The Tahm Kench against Kindred was very smart because you can pick up the Kindred and spit her out of her ultimate. Very cool interaction. I'm not sure if that was their plan going into the game, but it makes a lot of sense when you see it happen. Kench is just a very annoying champion to play against. Deceptively strong in laning phase, very safe, helps you defend your carries, especially if you have an immobile carry. So that was the first dragon fight. And then everything just goes back and forth for a couple of minutes, and now we're on the next dragon fight? Why does this even happen? We're 2 minutes away from a dragon at this point. Kindred was pushing out in the bot lane, which was a mistake. Wait, what was happening here? So Renekton was pushing out, and Kindred's plan was to go kill the Renekton? That's pretty insane. I guess theoretically they have a teleport from Varus, but like, what are the chances that this actually succeeds? Man, this is a pretty big mistake. Tahm Kench is the first one to come with his ultimate. Oh god. So whether or not somebody dies in that situation, like a lot of resources were used 2 minutes before the fight even happened. It looks like Kindred's ultimate will be back up, but that could have been a game-losing play. Alright, so now we have Kennen looking for a flanking position onto Sunning. Now he's spotted out. So instead of running away from the Kennen, they start to turn onto Kennen. They disengage that pretty well by throwing out the Sleepy Trouble Bubble. Now it's Tahm Kench who's theoretically flanking, but he's not really very scary when he's flanking you. Kennen gets hit by a bunch of Zoe damage. Bilibili Gaming has the better position initially. Angel flashes forward for an aggressive play, which is pretty good. They've taken a lot of damage at this point. It does look like Bilibili Gaming is winning and was able to secure the first kill in this match, or in this team fight, but they're taking a lot of damage, and you still have to deal with things like Renekton. So 3 of their 4 damage dealers are very low, and they don't have a true tank on their team. A clutch redemption right there. So again, Sunning is just trying to deny Soul Point. They make a pretty risky decision here to continuously aggro the dragon, but I guess what they're really trying to do is force a bad decision out of Bilibili Gaming. So you can see Meteor is like hovering in and out of the fight, doesn't have flash. doesn't have the ultimate, so Trundle uses the pillar to keep Kindred pretty far away. So at this point, Kindred's probably saying, I cannot get onto this dragon right now. Kennon's looking for a flank, flashes forward, gets onto the Zoe, but they're going to die. Renekton ends up going 1-for-1 on the other side of the fight. And this is worth it for Sunning. This is worth it, very, very obviously. Denying Soul again. And because Renekton was able to trade 1-for-1 on the Kindred, they're able to start up Baron. And it looks like they're going to take the Baron, right? So at this point, the only thing that can happen that loses the game for Sunning is if Trundle dies or if they end up getting the Baron stolen away from them. But they're able to secure it, which just shows pretty good composure. That's why you pick Jhin, is for that kind of fourth shot on his ultimate. And Sunning is unable to close out the game, so it looks like we're going to get another dragon fight. Yeah, so at this point they know that they can just continue to win dragon fights. They've been... Actually, I don't know. So maybe they should have tried to end more forcefully there. Kindred has to waste her ultimate before the dragon even starts. And again, that happens because of Zoe. So Angel did a really good job on Zoe this game. Now we have another dragon. Renekton, again, flanking from the same position. So they've had this exact same fight 3 times. Where they're having the Renekton kind of try to flank from bottom tribush. And again, Trundle's job here is to keep a pillar between the dragon and Kindred. Like, how is the Kindred going to get into that fight? So that probably feels horrible if you're Billy Gaming. The fact that you lost the same way like 3 times around dragon. And now they're all kind of stuck. Sunning already has minions going into their base in that direction. ADD gets caught out by a Jhin W. Zoe follows up. Trundle's right there. Renekton's looking for a flank, and I believe this is how the game ends. So that's a pretty bad magical journey by Bard, but it's also a very good pillar by SFM. So you kind of have to give the credit to SFM there, I think. Understanding the interaction between those two things. Then we get Bard's ultimate. Jhin follows up again with a W. And that's the game. Yeah. So very interesting set of matches today. Very interesting. I had Sunning. I thought Top Esports would win, but I knew that there were ways for V5 to win. I did have some exposure to V5, but not enough. I did like some of the lines where it was like 4-2-1, where you get 4 players from Sunning, 2 players from V5, and Knight. I just didn't have the right combination. Which happens. The guy who won the 10K and the $4 Elder Dragon, that guy Bathrobe DFS, good for that guy. He also came in like 3rd place in the $15. He's dealing with a lot of shit, and if I'm not going to win, I'm glad somebody like that guy won. He puts out a lot of content for DFS, and he's dealing with a lot. So let's quickly go over the other matches today. So we have LGD against Rogue Warriors, Longshi, Peanut, Xie, Kramer, and Mark against Holder, Haro, Wuming, Zwuji, and Lei. Then we have World Elite against LNG, so Morgan, Beishang, Teacherma, Jiaomeng, and Missing against Flandre instead of Chenlun 17, XX, Maple, Light, and Diwandi instead of Dewan. So LNG is continuously switching up their roster, which is a bad sign in my opinion. LGD, still an underrated team right now. They are a pretty huge advantage against Rogue Warriors. I think that players are going to want Rogue Warriors to win, and that's going to impact DraftKings ownership a lot. Like a lot more than it should. So if we're looking just at the money lines, World Elite is minus 625, LGD is minus 525. I think most players are going to say like, oh, well, Rogue Warriors, they had a good match recently. They're pretty talented. They're very bloody. So they are good for DraftKings, and LGD is a good matchup for DraftKings. So if you're looking at DraftKings specifically, yes, I do think it's realistic to have Rogue Warriors lose a match and still be one of the highest scoring teams on the slate. So I could see Rogue Warriors losing to LGD 1-2, where they lose 2 of the matches, keep one of them very close, and then win harder in their win over LGD. So I do think they're definitely a live dog to win the match. But I think it's more realistic that the match stays close, LGD wins, but Rogue Warriors has like 1 or 2 players that have a ton of DraftKings points. It's going to be very tough in this matchup for Haro against Peanut. Haro is a poor man's version of Peanut. That is always difficult. Like, if you have Haro against a jungler who is not a carry jungler, that's when Haro shines. Haro is not the kind of guy who's going to be able to fight Peanut head-to-head and take that matchup consistently. So I think that the primary out that they have is kind of gone. Zwuji against Kramer, I guess Zwuji is the harder carry player, so that is technically an advantage. Xie against Wuming, I think Xie is the better player. Longxi against Holder, that's 50-50. So definitely chances for LGD, but like I said, I think it's more likely that LGD wins 2-1, and Rogue Warriors manages to have like 1 player or 2 players do really well from a DraftKings perspective. World Elite against LNG. World Elite is just better in every position. So that's a pretty tough matchup. World Elite is by far the most likely team to 2-0 tonight. But that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. If you want to see me dive a little deeper into this matchup, I'll have it on my stream later tonight between 10 to 11 o'clock is normally when I get started. We look at the sheet, we look at DraftKings, we look at ownership. 2-game slates, a lot less interesting, obviously, but you know, there are people out there playing these matches, so we have to give them the content. So thanks again for watching, and I'll talk to you later.